begin talking and it cuts off several sentences, so I'm just nattering. Just a thought, okay, so well, just a couple of thoughts. With regards to evidence, do you remember Paul Holes, he's a private investigator now, but I believe he was an FBI agent. He's very good looking, I suppose, so I have a feeling he's probably had some sort of TV role, you know, documentary style. I'm not sure, but anywho, he's a private investigator who was on stage with one of the families at one of the crime cons. This could have been years ago now, but it was after Kegan Kline was arrested and after he was doing some interviews. And one thing that Kegan Kline said that Paul Holes brings up on stage at CrimeCon is that Kegan said, yeah, well, you know, I've cooperated, I've done everything. I gave DNA, I gave a hair follicle. So you have to think, right? They're taking, was that on a just in case that somehow they might find hair follicles to compare with a possible perpetrator at some point? Did they take Richard Allen's hair follicles and not find anything? It's so confusing, isn't it? And this confusion, as frustrating as it is for people on the outside looking in, can you only imagine what the families feel and think about this, and the restraint that they've had to have, all the processing that they've had to do? It has to be torture, right? Now, we know that families, they seem to have to be perfect, okay, for us to, you know, give them a break. If they're the family of someone who is missing or has turned up dead, and if we don't like every single thing they say, oh boy, right? An angry mob. Becky Patty understands that she didn't know enough about Libby's online presence. She feels infinitely guilty. She has a bottomless pit where her grief and guilt comes out, right? So strangers and people that presume to think that they know don't need to be piling it on. Kelsey German knows that she doesn't speak very well. She realizes that she struggles with public life and that it was never really for her until such time as her sister was brutally murdered. So, you know, as I've said quite often, I guess, when people don't perform as we want and aren't who we want them to be, it just seems to let in a lot of vulgarity and hate and this lack of compassion, this absolute void where empathy should be. Anyway, so I just wanted to say, yeah, what about this hair follicle situation that Kegan Kline, hi Space City Music, I'm going to go now. I'm being really lazy. I just thought that I'd just bring up this thing about the hair follicle. Kegan Kline gave DNA and he gave hair follicles, and ex-FBI agent Paul Holes brought this up at CrimeCon one time, thinking, hey, well, have they got some hair with follicles on it to compare at the crime scene. But, you know, we have no trust in this investigation. Imagine what the families feel. Imagine the depth of the patience that they've had to have. Kelsey said on that same stage at CrimeCon, when asked, you know, how are you going to feel when there's an arrest, when something happens, when today is the day? And she said, you know, it's just going to be a whole new world of pain, kind of thing. I'm paraphrasing, kind of. And that's what happened. You know, she said, it's just going to be so confusing. It's going to be painful. It's going to, you know, we know that we're just back in it again. It's going to be so difficult. That's exactly what happened when Richard Allen was arrested. And yeah, the reign of holy horror again comes down on them, right? They can't win. They can't win. But the one other point I wanted to make before I go was, and it's just all based around, you know, these little things from re-listening to this CrimeCon HLN interview, was Paul Holes also said, you know, sometimes they go back. You have to really rethink, really go back through the investigation, and that's what we're, you know, told happened. And they found Richard Allen to investigate after re-interviewing or interviewing Patrick Westfall in August. They went to Richard Allen and then they arrested him. But he says often, you know, you really need to go back because you can't be guaranteed that when something has been rubbed for DNA, that it's the spot where there is sample on that piece of clothing or on the person. And he cited one really bizarre case that he must have had where his, maybe what you might call a BAU sort of profile, he thought that the perpetrator was a sort of smaller person or just less experienced thug kind of thing, right, committing this violent crime. It looked like they'd really struck the woman that they ended up murdering. It was violent. One of her socks was sort of off and everything. And he thought, you know, going back to revisit many, many years later, how can we do better? What have we missed? And he actually had the body exhumed, and they swabbed the bottom of this poor victim's feet, and that's where the DNA of the perpetrator was. It's the only place that it was left. And I'd say there are so many things that can be done better in this case now that they shouldn't be afraid to revisit. And I really hate hearing that people are they've got such a personal vendetta about someone, again, because apparently prosecutors, everybody has to be perfect for you to like them and think that they can do their job, or to think that they actually want to get a righteous conviction. So people that don't like the way that McClelland lives his life, and I can tell you now, there is so much vitriol from people you trust, from white supremacists. You're going to listen to them when they're being derisive about someone who has a personalized number plate. Do we even know if that's true? Maybe he does have the boss. Okay, maybe someone bought it for him, right? I mean, probably not, but I know people that have been given some very funny license plates. They never would have chosen it themselves, but then they embrace it. You don't know everything about people's lives, but the judgment. But anyway, fuck, this is a mess. I should have just recorded this, and then I could have done it again and made it 5 minutes long and succinct. There's always more though, isn't there? You always end up going off on a tangent. You know, whatever you think of someone like Nick McClelland, he's pushing shit uphill with this one, isn't he? Because the investigative team have been a nightmare, and they haven't done a decent enough job that prosecution can be confident. And I don't think the public can be confident that how things were processed have done a good enough job. And, you know, they should feel, I mean, they should have the funding or whatever supports they need to go and do what they need to do, retest everything, reswab whatever they've got. But isn't it curious that they took Kegan Kline's hair follicle? So, you know, you can't just take a little piece of hair. All you can do then is probably look under the microwave. I think it's dead. It's just, I don't know. I mean, is there DNA in it? I don't know. It's protein, keratin. But in the follicle, you get something to test. And they took that from Kegan Kline, if you can believe it. So did they take Richard Allen's? You would assume they've taken Richard Allen's here. Have they tested it? Yeah, we need to know. We need to know more. It needs to go to trial. And for nosy parkers or people that just need to know how, if a plea is on the table, which might happen, and this does happen. Was it Dennis Radar or was it, I think it might have been, was it Gary Ridgway that went through 2 years of, you know, no, I'm innocent, and then he just turned around, rolled over in court and said, yeah, that was me. You know, it happens, right? But yeah, there could be a plea. We will never know. We won't find out all these answers we're desperate for. Anyway, there's just so much going on. Oh, just wait and see. Oh, you're a fool, people say. You're going to find out. And they're insinuating, look, it's the families. But they can't make up their minds, right? So first, the families are promising not to tell. So that would insinuate that they know something, that they've been victims of revenge or they've been, you know, warned. And they're frightened. But then in the next breath from these same people, oh, they just are telling cops what to do. Why are they in control of the investigation? Why are they telling people what to do? Oh, they've got so much power. They're so corrupt. So which is it, right? People go around in circles. Anyway, this is crap. I'm just rambling. Just wanted to talk about the hair follicle and wonder, you know, what resources have the prosecution got to go through and triple check everything that this under par investigative team seems to have done. And, you know, you don't have to personally like someone to not harass them and bully them. So it's crazy, right? I mean, to think, okay, if you think families are guilty, hey, why didn't other people in law enforcement, you think that it's so crazy that you don't think that they would have been arrested. Oh, because they're all, you know, they're all mates and friends. And, you know, the FBI and the ISP and the sheriffs, everybody, all those authorities, you know, they'd all be in agreement. No, we just leave them alone. We know they've done it. We're not going to arrest them. I mean, sadly, look at Zion, father of Laura, one of the double homicide victims. Those were two girls that were just taken together off a bike by a 16-year-old young man, okay, who turned out to be a serial rapist, and he committed other murders, and he was finally found by DNA. But Laura Hobbs' father was held for 5 years. Please won't hesitate to arrest someone in family if they think that they are guilty, right? They clearly didn't think they had anything on people because they haven't made arrests. They didn't even try to charge Kegan Kline for it. Gee, I wonder why. They didn't arrest Mr. Holder or Mr. Westfall, did they? And now we've got some commentators saying, who seem just to have these personal vendettas, saying things like, Judge Gull, the darling of the prosecution. She's just doing her job, you stupid bitches. Okay. And I think the craziness, the audacity of what the defense has done to cherry pick. I mean, sure, we know the investigators suck, okay? And we know that they've been involved in a whole lot of things. And oh boy, we do know why officer was used in the PCA, not Dan Doolan, right? But that means the judge is in on it too. Wow. This whole Odin thing, if it is someone with an Odinistic bent, we actually know where they're likely to be located and where we can find them, right? You'd have to look at law enforcement. As per the live I did last, white supremacy, well, it's hiding in plain sight in the forces, isn't it? That's what the truth is in America, sadly, at the moment. And that's where you'd look if there's any truth to what the defense is saying, right? But people would still rather go and say it's to do with the families, and they're trying to link it to Flora Fire. Now, sure, okay, so you can see this tenuous connection because Becky Patty is probably, I don't know, look up how many registered valuators are in Carroll County. She evaluated the house maybe in October before it was burned. So what? You think that, after it was burned, she got suspicious and she was going to say something because she would have seen something in the valuation? Well, that would be in black and white on the valuation for anybody to see. Becky Patty wouldn't have to do anything. What are people saying? Oh, that they bribed her to write up something fake on the valuation? Okay. Now they don't want her to tell, promise not to tell. And rather than burning down her office, destroying her records and giving her a threat that way, they decide to just murder two beautiful little girls. How does that conversation come about? How do they decide, hey, this little problem we've got? So apparently by December, apparently according to, the True Village of the Damned, discussions were in the works about what to do about killing these little girls. And they tie absolutely everything in, right? And Libby had an appointment with a law enforcement officer. Suddenly that's truth. One of them was pregnant. Which is it? They're pregnant, or it's to do with Flora? What is it? It's to do with Anna Williams maybe dating someone outside of her race, as they say. Which is it? It's all the same people saying all the same shit. They don't realize how unhinged they sound. They don't realize that they're part of a cult. It's unfortunate that there is so much corruption and that there's so much destruction and just people tearing through other people's lives selfishly and greedily in Carroll County, because it just allows people to create these scenarios and these narratives for people to run with. And, and these conspiracies, it just gets so huge because they're not discarding anything. There's not just any one thing. Anything goes. As long as it's feeding their narcissistic supply, or their little vendettas, or putting tiny bits or large bits of money in the bank. Some of them, you can't trust what are behind creators' motives. Some of them have become very huge creators and they've moved on to do exactly the same thing in maybe the Idaho 4 case, for example, where there is actually a lot more evidence than we have against Richard Allen right now that we're privy to, against Brian Koberger. But wow, oh no, there's mafia involved there too, and drug cartels, and little, gangs of teenage women and things like that, right? All involved. Nothing to do with Brian. What a patsy. Oh my God, the corruption, right? And it's the same people that have gotten their jollies over here in DELPHI, and they're over there doing it in Idaho because it's their shtick, it's their thing, right? You've got people that insist that the Snapchat image of Abby isn't real and that it's made up, planted, and then posted from the bridge, but they've never experimented themselves clearly with Snapchat to see how it's done. If I took an image now or made up an image now that I wanted to go outside and upload at a certain time in the Snapchat app to create an alibi, that image, when I'm holding my phone, it's either going to show my face, right, imposed over that image, or show what's ever in front of me imposed with that image, and I would have to angle my phone so that it's not doing that, and you can tell that that's done, and it warps it, and it's just not possible that it happened how people like I Am the Ducky say it happened. And yet cult following, so many people going around saying that happened in every single comment section. And these people that are just entertaining themselves, or were they just caught in a vulnerable moment, or are they just morons? They're just hateful. The pig roast, for example, there was a pig roast. They were celebrating this ritual, because now they're full on, it was a ritual. FBI didn't find anything to do with any sort of pig roast or gathering of people that might have sparked their interest, did they? And none of the other law enforcement agencies who were right there at the time, and all the search parties could see fire and a gathering at Ron Logan's that night. That's when we're told it happened. But people celebrating this upcoming sacrifice of these girls. How audacious. And, while people are searching over there, they've got them held over here, and they're having a pig roast. Yeah, and probably, chanting and just reveling in this slaughter that they're going to commit very soon, but no proof of that was found. Anyway, sorry. I'll see you guys later. But, because you could just go on and on, couldn't I? Anyone could. It's just so frustrating. I mean, I've questioned things. Everybody questions things. And someone in Incognito Society's comment section was going, so suddenly the questioners are, I don't know what he said about it, but it's not just, you can ask questions, but do they make sense? And have you got proof to stick to it? And they say, we're just asking questions. No, they're not. They are actually gunning for the families, and they won't let it go. They're like bulldogs with something in their mouth, and they're locked on. It wouldn't matter what you tell them. They're just determined to hate and to blame. They've just got it in their head, and that's it. and mark my words, pretty soon we're going to have Julie Melvin. She's going to be telling people about the cabin. Yeah. She's going to fuel that one all up, right? And that's going to spark people believing in this valley blot. Because remember, if you're going to say that you believe the Snapchat and you believe that, the bridge, everything was setting up alibis, well, the girls were already dead according to you. That's what you believe. They were already dead. It was just alibis. They weren't at the bridge on the 13th. What a lie about seasonally warm. I mean, we know the sweatshirts are fucking confusing. Everything's confusing. Are you there? Are you investigating? No. And then those same people, but now they're going to revel in this, because now the same people that have believed that and just thrown hate and scoffed about pancakes and things like that, they've never seen an autopsy. They don't understand about the time of death. They don't know anything to base their beliefs on. And now they're going to go along with Julie Melvin in the cabin, because now they get to say about Valley Blot, which is a bastardized Nordic pagan sacrifice day for Valentine's Day. It was introduced through Asatru, and of course the Odins, it's Asatru that they steal from and take symbols from and use the calendar of. And so, now that'll give them their blood sacrifice, which means, okay, so bridge, it's all alibis and that's all fake, but the girls weren't really dead because they were actually held in a cabin after they went to the bridge, which is now real. But they were held in a cabin so that they could be murdered on the 14th. But, Jacqueline Bissett. Ben Deo, no, but that would be beautiful, isn't she? She's lovely. If only I could age and still look like someone like that. Anyway, I'm just having a bitch, and this is just a little casual chat. It's not meant to be anything. But I thought what Paul Holes said was really, that's what they need to be doing. Now, hopefully it extended beyond the finding out that Dan Doolan talked to someone called Richard Allen. They need to go back. I think they need to go back and check everything forensically again. And I think they need to be taking everything out of evidence again. Clothing, the shoe, checking the girls' bodies again, anything that they've got, and they need to be swabbing and looking again. Yeah, because as he says, you might have a sweatshirt and it's got a blob of what looks like blood or fluid, on it, and they swab that, but actually the DNA, there can be other things right next to it, just that weren't visual. And yeah, that's what they need to do. It's like the same people that are saying that DELPHI's so corrupt and Richard Allen's a patsy and everything, but they want him to go and stay in that little county jail where there's no security at all. Any one of these, corrupt people can walk in and just, he's safer in Westville prison. All right, I really am going to go. But unless anybody who happens to be here, 3 people, want to ask a question or anything. It's just been so much going on, and creators are, look, I am a response channel, so I have a little lash out, but, people are going crazy. I've seen some pretty nasty comments that someone's been making. It's all pretty disturbing. The fighting about, the jostling with creators. I think the creators that got any information and get all these leaks, they are not being used because they are respected. They're being used for their qualities that are, let's say, the lesser human qualities. Yeah. All right, I'm going to bugger off. Thanks for listening. But yeah, think about DNA. Why did Kegan Kline say that he had a hair follicle taken? Has that happened to Richard Allen? You know, people are so cocksure that there's nothing on Richard Allen, but what happens? So what happens when the investigation now says, okay, we've got someone, they go to the prosecutor says, yep, we'll take this to the judge. The judge says, yeah, that's enough to get an arrest. That legally opens up access to the person, getting their DNA, getting their hair follicles, going into their homes, access to their clothes, access to their electronics, access to their lives. That's when things are gathered. So, you know, I don't know if Richard Allen is guilty, but I do believe this looks like a sexual predator crime, a violent fantasy crime, probably just opportunistic. And, you know, I think anyone can perform that crime. A 5'4" man, which has no bearing really on how physically strong they are, really, especially with a gun and a knife. I don't know if it's Richard Allen, but we need due process to know if it is, because prosecution think it is, and you don't know what they've got. And people have been very outspoken about his innocence. They would rather blame the family and yeah, Johnny's often here, eh? I think he might be a bit tired. I've seen him in a few chats actually lately. So yeah, he might be. He'll be having his fireside. He might be having a snooze by the fireplace. But do you know what I mean? People would rather still attack family and say, when the prosecutors are probably, okay, we know innocent people get railroaded. They could have chosen anybody. Law enforcement could have chosen anybody or even nobody, because they, you know, and they've gone with Richard Allen, and there's a reason for that. And they've had a lot of time to be gathering evidence, and we don't know what it is. And the defense have had a lot of time to try and see if there's exculpatory evidence. Clearly they haven't had any, and found any, and whether it's because of the passage of time, which is super unfortunate. So maybe they just can't find records for things, but they haven't produced anything exculpatory that says, oh well, look, it's not this guy, so you got to drop these charges for now. You know, say as they did with Barry Morphew in the case against his wife, who was still missing at the time, Suzanne Morphew. She's been found now, deceased. But you know, you can drop the charges without prejudice, okay? And that means that they can bring charges again against that same person. They're not doing that. They've probably got something, right? And yeah, it's like, who's that? What's that Snickety's, someone Snickety's unfortunate events? It's like that. It's just, it is so unbelievable. It's so, I mean, if it wasn't so sad, it would be funny. If it wasn't so revolting, it would be funny. That there just so happens to be so many foul things going on with the people that are involved in the case. Of course, people that are involved in this case are going to be involved in the Flora case. That happens everywhere on the planet. Everywhere on the planet. It's 9 kilometers down the road, due east. to the Flora house. You don't think that the same people working in services are going to be involved in a fire and an investigation for Flora and involved in an investigation for 2 murdered girls? I mean, they didn't do a very good job of plot work. We know that they definitely didn't go and just knock on every door in DELPHI. They didn't ask for a gun amnesty or anything like that, you know. They just tried to be so secret and hush-hush, and they've obviously missed something, I guess. People are now saying that, God, I just keep going on, don't I? People are now saying that Dan Doolan is friends. He's friends with Richard Allen, and so that's why I didn't want to, you know, push it. That's going to become the narrative now, just like the pig roast. They put that out there on purpose, and they let social media, they let people like us just do the job. And now Dan Doolan was Richard's friend or something like that, and he didn't believe that it was him. So yeah, I wish I knew more about the Orion data management system that they use in law enforcement, because Dan should have used it. I mean, the guy's an asshole. He's probably not very good at his job too. But you'd think he could enter some basic information into Orion, but I don't know anything about that system. So, you know, how can it be misfiled? How can someone be misappropriated or whatever in the system so that they're not found? Anyway. All right, guys. There's just so much we could just muse on and be pissed off about, isn't there? But, you know, I think the next date, it's October the 19th. Also, for anybody that does listen to this, that doesn't know, you probably do know, I think Randy Gravett has another walk soon in DELPHI. It might even be on October the 21st. So if you're around, yeah, you can find out about that and go. But it's just nuts. There's just so many liars and so many egos and so many narcissists and people that are so Machiavellian, and quite a few people that are really willing to just let them get that satisfaction. It's like it's nearly too easy. It's, come on. It's always funny to me. I think, oh, here we are. We're in true crime. Look at the stupid questions people ask. I know that sounds so snotty, but sometimes do you see a comment, and I'm guilty of this through the years and probably more recently. Sometimes, you know, I think stupid things. We all can, but sometimes do you look at a comment and just go, what planet are you on? How do you even function in life, right? What are you doing in true crime? This is not the genre for you. Go and watch daytime soaps, and you think, oh, hold on a minute. Well, has this replaced daytime soaps for the desperate housewives? Is this why people like Alan Vinicombe over on the now hopefully defunct forever Armchair Detective, you know, is this why people like that are so popular? This is, you know, people think true crime, are they still in the same way that they don't understand that maybe characters on a soap opera aren't real? Do they think that this is just drama, not real entertainment? I mean, there's just something just bizarre going on there. And anyway, blah blah blah. See you laters.